भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou abidest in all, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms, Thou art the origin and goal of all, Thou art the self of all, Thou art existence, knowledge and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः. Salutations again and again at the Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna's feet, and with that we shall begin today's very special Sunday service. We shall have a symposium on the life and teachings of Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi. As you can recollect earlier, the worship and also this symposium used to happen together on a Sunday. But we made a little change because of the pandemic. We decided to have on 1st January the two worships together, like the special worship for the wish-fulfilling tree day, Kalpataru day, and Holy Mother's birthday. Actually, Holy Mother's birthday, according to the lunar calendar, is on coming Tuesday, the 5th. But for the convenience, we usually observe it on Sunday. So this year we had the worship on Friday, and another very major part of the celebration, the symposium today. The symposium is actually the speakers are those who have contemplated the life of Holy Mother for many years, and also have been practicing the ideals that she actually lived and exemplified by her life to the world. So, we have three very good speakers, and so as it was, I was debating in the morning, thinking who of the three should speak first. So didn't find any really logical clue to decide who will be the first. So somebody told, come on, take the reverse of their, the reverse of their first name. So, okay, why, I don't know, but somebody thought, and since when there is no particular criterion who should be first, who should be next, who should be last, so our order has been decided accordingly. Sarah will be speaking first, then Arunim will be speaking second, and then Yona will be speaking at the end. So, Sarah has been associated with Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Holy Mother, right from childhood. And she has spoken here before on such occasions. She is a very good student of these lives, and so and speaks very well. It is I remember long back, her mother, who is also present today, she had spoken on the same topic, and then in such symposium long ago. And do you remember which year was it? Okay, I too don't remember. Yeah. So, but I told her, don't speak like your mother. Something original has to be spoken by you. So, I request Sarah to come and begin her speech.
Thank you, Swamiji, for such a nice introduction. Hello, friends. Can you hear me? Okay. So when Swamiji first asked me to speak today, there was something weighing on my mind, the coronavirus, which I'm sure has been weighing on your minds as well. But then I thought, who would be a better guide than Holy Mother to emulate during the coronavirus? She faced all her hardships with forbearance and with complete faith. Sri Sarada Devi, Holy Mother, was born on December 22nd. I can take it. Okay. Was born on December 22nd, 1853, to a poor Brahmin family in the village of Jarambati in Bengal. We regard her as a manifestation of God, the consort of Sri Ramakrishna. She was a true Sahadharmini, a spiritual partner for Sri Ramakrishna that shared his mission in life to attain God realization. She never dragged him down to base desires, but they always lifted each other up in their spiritual path. Her parents were religious, good-hearted people. And her family lived together with her father's brothers, and she spent her childhood taking care of her younger siblings and doing chores. Although she seemed like an ordinary village girl from this perspective, she would become a great spiritual teacher. Sri Sarada Devi was full of love and humility when she performed her work. Though it was said she did not perform spiritual austerities like Sri Ramakrishna, she was a perfect karma yogi. Through her focus and concentration, her everyday actions were transformed into acts of worship. Holy Mother had a strong sense of discipline, which Sri Ramakrishna helped to instill in her when he trained her on spiritual and also household matters. When she went to stay with Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar, life was not easy for Holy Mother. But she remembered these days as the happiest moments of her life, saying, "When I thought I was serving him, no physical discomfort bothered me. The days passed in unmixed bliss." And yet, most of the 10 years that the Holy Mother lived at Dakshineshwar, she spent most of her time in a structure of the temple called the Nahabat, a small structure originally made for worship and music. The space where she spent most of her time was an octagonal room with no windows, but 2 slits for ventilation. The space measured 50 square feet. She prayed, meditated, and slept in this stuffy room. Sometimes weeks or even up to 2 months would pass that she would not get to spend time alone with Sri Ramakrishna because she observed Purda. Because society at the time prioritized modesty and because she was naturally quite shy, Holy Mother would not be seen at all when large numbers of devotees came to stay with Sri Ramakrishna. Instead, she would stay on the balcony of the Nahabat and watch him through a screen. She was so discreet that the temple manager claimed to have never seen her. During these times, Holy Mother practiced patience, waiting to be reunited with Sri Ramakrishna. Like many of us during the time of the coronavirus, Holy Mother was used to patiently biding her time in order to be reunited with loved ones. Since she had been married to Sri Ramakrishna quite young, they lived apart for many years. And these years were hard to endure because the village people enjoyed gossiping about Sri Ramakrishna, calling him a madman because of his intense spiritual moods and the radical Catholicity of his religious ideas. It was during these times that work became a refuge for Sri Sharada Devi. At Dakshineshwar, Holy Mother kept a strict routine. Even during illness, Sri Sharada Devi did not waver from her completing her duties. She was in charge of managing the household, which she did lovingly and tirelessly. Here's an example of the schedule that she adhered to. At 3 or 4 a.m., she would wake up. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna would even help her sometimes by going to the door of her room and pouring water underneath. Then she would take a bath in the Ganges. After that, she would pray and meditate for 1 hour and a half. Then a lot of time was devoted to cooking the master's meals. She would give a massage to Sri Ramakrishna before bath time and then serve him the midday meal. And during that time, she would watch over him and talk with him so that he would not go into samadhi during the meal, because he was given to intense spiritual moods wherein he would lose consciousness. So she had to make sure that he would eat properly. After this, she would take rest in her room. Then she would prepare betel leaves for Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees. At 1 p.m., she would take her own lunch. Then she had a bit of time to go outside and enjoy sunshine. At 3 p.m., she would trim the lamps for evening prayer. After this, she would meditate, cook the evening meal, feed Sri Ramakrishna and his mother Chandramani Devi, and then after this, she would take her own dinner. This was a very busy day, as you can imagine. All of Holy Mother's actions were imbued with pure love. Because of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual sensitivity and delicate constitution, it was important that his meals were prepared and served with pure intentions. Otherwise, he would feel pain. From a superficial view, Holy Mother didn't appear so different from any Hindu wife at the time. But her divinity transformed mundane actions like managing her household into acts of worship and acts from which devotees could learn and benefit from. She instructed, "One must always do some work. Only through work can one remove the bondage of work. Total detachment comes later. One should not be without work even for a moment. Work helps one to fend off idle thoughts. If one is without work, such thoughts rush into one's mind. Here, Holy Mother illustrates that the work we perform is not so much for the sake of the work itself, but for the sake of concentrating the mind. Another thing to note is that Holy Mother dealt with illness quite often in her life. On her first trip to Dakshineshwar, Sri Sarada Devi fell quite ill. In this remarkable instance, a beautiful, dark-skinned woman appeared to Holy Mother and soothed her with her hands, saying, "You will surely go to Dakshineshwar. You will get well and see Sri Ramakrishna. It is for your sake that I am keeping him there." Looking back, Holy Mother realized it was the goddess Kali herself manifesting to assuage her fears about not being able to go see her husband, Sri Ramakrishna. Another case where she became ill was when a living quarter was built for her by a devotee, Sambhu Malik, in the temple garden. But the conditions were quite damp in those living quarters, and she developed dysentery. Right after that, she also developed a malaria attack. But she always faced her illness with faith and forbearance. According to the tradition of the time, she prostrated herself before the image of the goddess Simhavahini and prayed for the goddess to reveal the right treatment for her, fasting from food or drink all the while. Finally, Holy Mother received a vision of the goddess instructing her to use the juice of bottle gourd as medicine. When dealing with illness, Sri Sarada Devi surrendered herself completely to God. She took her illness in stride, saying, "Today the human body is, tomorrow it is not. Even the shortest span of life is beset with pain and misery." Sri Sarada Devi also faced ailing health later in life. She was struck with malaria once again and was left in a weakened state. She even had to use a cane. But all the while, she never stopped initiating devotees and thinking of their welfare. Even when her own pain was great, she never stopped thinking about others. Every day, devotees would attend to Holy Mother and find the doctor to keep updates on her condition. But she always made sure that they eat breakfast before setting out, because she was worried that they would return late without eating at all. And when the doctors would visit, Holy Mother asked her attendants to treat the physicians well and offer them refreshments and sweets. When a devotee was fanning Holy Mother during her sickness, she fussed, "You may stop now, your hand must be aching. I cannot sleep at all. I am worried that your hand may be aching. If you do not fan me, I shall feel relieved and be able to sleep." This shows that her nature was so caring and sweet, even when she was feeling ill. Holy Mother also took on the role of caretaker to people who fell ill. Sri Ramakrishna had a delicate constitution, and like a loving mother, Sri Sarada Devi cared for Sri Ramakrishna by coaxing him to eat more. She would boil down his milk and press his rice so that he would eat more food. And when Sri Ramakrishna had throat cancer, Holy Mother tended to him lovingly. She prepared special foods for him that a doctor recommended, including stewed clams. At first, Holy Mother felt quite squeamish about killing the clams since they were living creatures. But she prepared the stew in service to Sri Ramakrishna. So even while being ill, Sri Ramakrishna continued to teach Holy Mother. When he asked for this specific food, Holy Mother came to realize that the killer of the clam and the clam were one, that God alone exists in all things. Realizing this, Holy Mother was assuaged. Naturally, being a caretaker also taught Holy Mother how to deal with grief. For 3 days, she prayed and fasted from food and water at the Shiva temple in Tarakeshwar to heal Sri Ramakrishna from throat cancer. But then she heard a voice saying, "Who is one's husband? Who are one's relatives? For whom are you about to kill yourself?" This drew out detachment in her. She realized that God alone exists and that Sri Ramakrishna would never truly be gone. When Sri Ramakrishna passed, Holy Mother wanted to observe tradition and don a white sari and remove her jewelry, but Sri Ramakrishna spoke to her and said, "Am I dead, that you are acting like a widow? I have just moved from one room to another." Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother showed us that death is not a final end. Those we love are always with us. The real nature of the soul is birthless, deathless, and to merge with the Absolute is to be immortal. During the course of her life, Holy Mother would bear the loss of many family members and devotees. And it may seem strange that a God person would have to suffer just as much as any regular human being. But Holy Mother explained, "I live as a householder. That is why I must taste the fruit of the tree of the world. That is why I weep." Sri Ramakrishna had also said, "When God is incarnated in a human body, he acts exactly like a man. He feels the same hunger, thirst, sickness, grief, and fear as others do. Even Brahman weeps when caught in the trap of the 5 elements." Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother showed us that on this plane of relative existence, there is no life free from suffering, even for the God-man. Sickness can be a powerful teaching tool. We realize we are not the body. We no longer identify with it. How can a person be a body that gets sick and withers away? The true nature of a person is the Atman, the soul, perfect and ever free. Holy Mother is an ideal teacher for the time of coronavirus. Her discipline, detachment, and loving care are the remedy we need for these times. It can be easy to succumb to depression or harmful thoughts when we have a lot of time to be idle. But Holy Mother teaches us to take up work, and more so, to transform our work into worship. Even when suffering or going through loss, Holy Mother remained cheerful and unwavering. Even when she was suffering herself, she faced her hardships with total surrender to God and always thought of others' welfare. Jai Ma.
Thank you, dear Sarah. She works in a medical laboratory, and so therefore it was quite natural that she thought of speaking about Holy Mother, her message in these pandemic coronavirus related situation. So thank you very much. It was a very nice discourse. Now we shall have Arunim speaking. Arunim also has spoken here many times, and he is a good singer also, and a very good student of this literature of Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Holy Mother. So I requested him to speak today on this occasion. So please, Arunim.
Good evening. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Matrirupena Samsthita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Salutations to the Divine Mother who exists in all beings as Mother. Salutations to her again and again. Ever since I remember, photos of Holy Mother always adorned our home. At that time, I knew little about her apart from the fact that she was Thakur's wife and had a loving nature. I vividly remember, though, that whenever my exams were drawing near, my prayers to her increased. Maybe it was because my mother had once told me that to Thakur you have to pray more intensely, but the Holy Mother always listens. Sometimes young children do not know who their parents are to the outside world. They can be a head of state or a head of a huge company, but to them, they are just their mother or father, like everybody else's. They get some realization only when they grow up. Similar has been my journey with Holy Mother. It has been a revelation, hearing, reading, studying her life, and that discovery continues even today. Today I want to share some of that with you. Well, you see, you both have heard about Marvel, DC, and some of the other comic strips, right? They have introduced their readers and viewers to a lot of superheroes with tremendous superpowers. A Superman, a Spider-Man, an Iron Man, a Wonder Woman, just to name a few. And any superhero that you read about have some or all of these 4 basic characteristics. They have a secret identity that makes them appear as ordinary human beings. So, a Clark Kent for a Superman, a Peter Parker for a Spider-Man, and so on and so forth. Second, they have various powers that they exhibit when necessary. Example, supreme strength, ability to shift, super senses. Third, they free others from fear. In their presence, the people feel safe, they feel protected. 4, they forego personal health, comfort for the greater good. As Uncle Ben would tell Peter Parker, the future Spider-Man, that with great power comes great responsibility. However, all these characters are in the domain of fantasy or fiction. But when you read or analyze about Holy Mother and her life and her continued impact, you would realize that Holy Mother, who walked on this earth in flesh and blood from 1853 to 1920, is more than any superhero can ever be. Let us discuss these 4 points in the context of Holy Mother in a little more detail. First, her secret identity. Sarah mentioned this very well. Her secret identity was of a simple, shy village woman with very little formal education. As Ranganathanandaji puts it, to all outward appearances, the Holy Mother was just ordinary, and even less than ordinary, rustic in simplicity, almost unlettered, and shy and modest. She was far removed from educated, self-conscious, active type of modern women. Born in an obscure village to a poor Brahmin family, helping her mother with the household tasks, caring for her brothers, married at an early age. After coming to Thakur, she nearly spent whole of the Dakshineshwar period in a small, low-roofed room, less than 50 square feet. And it was a life of complete self-effacement and service to her husband and Guru. And she lived so quietly and unobserved that people hardly noticed her. She followed the strict rules of Parda as per the social customs. And in her life, as Sarah mentioned, she suffered from several physical ailments like rheumatism, bouts of malaria, dysentery, so on and so forth. She also experienced fear like an ordinary person. She was afraid of ghosts, and she was afraid of surgery. And so much so that once, when she was suffering from a terrible toothache, Swami Saradananda brought a dentist to extract her tooth. And fearing the painful extraction process, she was nowhere to be found. Finally, someone found her after the dentist had long left, lying under a cot covered with a chadar. So you see, what we discussed, it is even very difficult to imagine her as somebody who is a superhero. or divine for that matter. But in a twinkling of an eye, she would just transform. Even reading about these gives us goosebumps. Her decisions, her words, her actions exuded so much power, as if a sword comes out of its sheath and in a flash obliterates anything presented in front of it. Let us discuss this aspect further about her power. We'll do it in two parts. The first, the awakening. Like every superhero, in Holy Mother's life, we see this initial phase of intense practice and self-discovery, especially after she joined Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. Amidst serving Thakur and his devotees, maintaining a grueling schedule, she was also receiving her training, doing her mantra japa 100,000 times, and experiencing various forms of samadhis. The Shadoshi Puja performed by Thakur was an affirmation of her stature and her true nature. And at its culmination, in a supreme act of consecration, Thakur offered Holy Mother the fruits of his austerities, his rosaries, himself, and everything that was his. And he was an incarnation of God. Just think of it. He then uttered the following mantra: O Goddess, I prostrate myself before thee again and again, before thee, the eternal consort of Shiva, the three-eyed, the golden-hued, the indwelling spirit in all, the giver of refuge, the accomplisher of every end, and the most auspicious amongst all auspicious objects. In that rite, the Master invoked in her the presence of the Divine Mother. The second part, her superhuman powers. So you see, we get frustrated, even bothered, and even with our small circle of family, friends, relatives. But just imagine, surrounded by mad, greedy relatives, sought out by thousands of seekers, some spiritual, others worldly, being responsible for household setups, and also managing the ever-expanding spiritual ministry of Thakur's order. That was an unenvious situation that Holy Mother was in. How she managed all these reveals her super strengths, tremendous patience, forbearance, forgiveness, and her unconditional motherly love. These went way beyond what normal human beings can ever imagine. With these, she knocked down every barrier. People, be it her relatives or not, be it from any village, any state, from any country, from any religion, caste, or from any race, be it a saint or a sinner, be it a scholar or an illiterate, be it a rich or a poor person, be it an animal or a plant, no one was excluded from her grace. All were her own. While what we mentioned above was at least evident to a certain extent to others, but there were also few instances where she showed flashes of her other facets. Let us see three such facets. First, assuming other forms. The first incident involves Swami Abhedananda. He had gone to Holy Mother to recite for the first time now the famous hymn which he had just composed on her, Prakritim Paramam. When he recited the line, Tadbhava Karam, whose mental state is saturated with the Master, what did he see? Swami saw that Mother was no longer there. The Master, Sri Ramakrishna, was seated in the place of Holy Mother. The second incident involves Swami Maheshwarananda, Vaikuntha of Bakura in his pre-monastic name. One day he was massaging Mother's feet, and they were wrinkled, dry, and a thought arose in his mind. Could the Divine Mother of the universe have such wrinkled feet with visible veins? Gradually, a mysterious change occurred. Her feet were no longer the emaciated feet of an old woman. They had become a well-developed feet of a young woman with alta, the red paint, wearing golden anklets with gems and jewels. And when he saw up, he saw the form of goddess Jagadhatri, with golden complexion, 3 eyes, 4 arms, adorning many ornaments and wearing a crown. Seeing that, he lost his consciousness, saying, "Mother, Mother." The second aspect, communicating beyond spoken words and languages. Holy Mother did not have any language barrier while communicating. Her effortless interactions with Swamiji's Western disciples, people from the north and south of India, where she could hardly understand a word of the language, are the proof of this. She was obviously communicating via a different channel, a different protocol, and a much superior one at that. There are other instances where she could sense other person's need even when physically distant. Swami Arupananda writes in his reminiscences, "While I was talking to Holy Mother in her room, when suddenly she said to me, 'My child, I must go now.' And referring to Suryabala, Radhu's mother, she said, 'That crazy sister-in-law of mine has no one else to call her own but me, and she is weeping before the deity for jewelry.' With these words, the mother left the room. But I could not hear any sound of weeping, nor was it possible to do so at such a distance. Yet she recognized the voice, and she returned with Radhu's mother, who was crying in the temple." Third aspect, transcending time and space. There are instances where Holy Mother did so. Holy Mother narrated this to Yogin Ma herself. She was then meditating on the roof of Balaram Bose's house and passed into Samadhi, and while doing so, and after she regained external consciousness, she said, "I found that I had traveled to a faraway country. There, everybody showed me great tenderness. My appearance became exceedingly beautiful. The master, who was also present, affectionately made me sit by his side. I can't describe the joy I felt at that time." So you see, with these aspects, it is very evident that Holy Mother had various powers and siddhis, but she kept these mostly concealed. And that was her greatest power. Swami Premananda writes, "Who has understood the Holy Mother? Who can understand her? Not even the slightest trace of divine powers were noticeable in her. Sri Ramakrishna, however, had the Vidya powers. Many were the occasions when we witnessed his trances and ecstasies, but in Holy Mother, even the Vidya power were concealed." What supreme power that! So we have discussed Mother's secret identity, her powers. So now let us discuss Holy Mother as a bestower of fearlessness, calmness, and joy. Swami Abhedananda in his hymn addressed the Holy Mother as the divine Shakti embodied in the human form, the giver of boon and dispeller of fear. In her own words, Holy Mother has assured, "Never fear. Whenever you are in distress, say to yourself, 'I have a mother.' Difficulties always come, but they do not last forever. You will see that they pass away like water under the bridge." Shirodbala mentions in her reminiscences about the day of her initiation, "It struck me that this mother was not the same person I had seen the other day. At this thought, I lost consciousness. Then and there, Mother caught hold of my hand and made me sit upright on the asana. Placing her hand on my head, she uttered thrice in her sweet voice the assuring words, 'Don't be afraid.' She added, 'Have no fear. I am assuming the fruits of all the deeds of your past life. Now you are pure. You are free from sin. There are several other instances where Holy Mother saved her disciples from physical harm. No one went away from her with a downcast heart. She always fulfilled the prayer, Premaika bindum chiradagda chitte, cast a drop of thy love on our long parched heart. And she rendered it cool and peaceful. And sometimes it was just by her presence. Swami Arupananda relates this experience. In Jairambati, Mother's new house was under construction, and at that time, her brothers used to argue with us, and one day a quarrel ensued. And I was irritated. Perturbed, I went straight to the Holy Mother. Agitated, I said to her, "There is so much quarreling, I cannot work here anymore." Saying this, I sat on a veranda opposite her cottage. The mother remains standing there and calmly said, "If you cannot work here, that is fine. Here things will go on this way." I saw her look vacantly towards me. Immediately I saw that her standing form had become illumined. A halo appeared around her body. This vision calmed my agitation instantly. A complete change took place in my mind. Lastly, the one point was for forsaking her own comfort and own health for others. Holy Mother would completely forget about her own health and comforts. She would make all possible efforts so that others are taken care of physically, mentally, and spiritually. Swami Tapasyananda writes, her motherly love obliterated every vestige of possession from her and endowed her with a readiness to do even menial services to others and silently forego her own comforts and conveniences. As a guru, she took the sins of all her disciples, knowing very well that absorbing the sins of others would take a heavy toll on her body. Yet, she kept initiating anyone who sought her out. When refrained by her attendant, she scolded him and said, "I am born for this purpose." She prayed for them, did long hours of japa for them. Such was her compassion that she continued even when she was bedridden and her body emaciated. Today, I would like to conclude by referring to a beautiful lecture on Holy Mother delivered by Swami Bhuteshananda ji. He said, "If Sri Ramakrishna was the sun, Holy Mother was the moon. You cannot look at the sun for too long without being scorched. But Holy Mother was such a medium who would bathe you in her soothing, calming, loving light all the time. She has literally and metaphorically accepted children who were soiled, cleaned them up, nourished them, and guided them, and liberated them when their time was ripe. She continues to do so. She was such a dynamo with such power that even the fictional arc reactor of an Iron Man can never match. The entire Ramakrishna movement owes its existence to her. Yet, in spite of all this power, there was no ego. There was no self-desire, just love for all. As she always said, always remember, you have a mother." Have you ever heard of a better superhero than Holy Mother? I have not. Thank you.
Thank you, Arunim. That was a very good lecture. We always have been expecting such beautiful lectures from Arunim, and he has never failed us. Now I request Yona to begin her talk. She is a professor at Emerson University and has been coming here very devotedly, regularly for last how many? 2-3 years? 2 years, yeah. So, please.
Good evening. In one of my earliest meetings with Swami Yogatmananda, he asked me what I thought of Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi. Hesitatingly, I responded, well, Swami, you know, I'm a feminist, implying that she doesn't really resonate with me. At that time, I knew little about Holy Mother's life and play, but the little that I knew of her, that she was the embodiment of motherhood, that she was utterly obedient to her husband, that she was incredibly shy and modest, that she spent her whole life in the toil of housework and in the midst of daily worries, in monotonous routine, serving her relatives and really anyone who came her way, all of that seemed to contradict my notions and commitments to feminism and the emancipation of women. To this, Swamiji said something to the effect that Holy Mother is more of a feminist than what I think of as being feminism. At that moment, I admit I was not convinced. But since then, I have come to see Swamiji's point to some extent. My understanding of feminism has expanded, and the study of Holy Mother's life has helped with it. So my presentation today will be a reflection on Holy Mother as a feminist ideal. I will start with a few quotations. The first quotation is from Sister Nivedita, who said about Holy Mother that she is Sri Ramakrishna's final word as to the ideal of womanhood. The second quotation is from Swami Shivananda, who stated that primordial energy had incarnated herself as mother in order to awaken the women of the world. Her advent was followed by an unprecedented awakening of the women of the world. They are now resolved to build up their lives in all-round gracefulness and to advance in all directions. Not much has yet been achieved, for this is just the beginning. There is remarkable activation among women in the spheres of spiritual pursuits, politics, science, the arts, literature, etc. And more is to come. This is the play of divine power, the mysterious significance of which is beyond the conception of ordinary mortals. More recently, Pravrajika Divyananda Prana from the Sri Sarada Mass in New Delhi said that Holy Mother is responsible for a revolution, a silent but definite revolution in our perceptions, in our understandings, in our philosophies of life. There's nothing more purifying than the study of this life, end quote. This revolution is ongoing, even as our understanding has yet to catch up with it. For as Swami Vivekananda said, people will not understand her, meaning Holy Mother, now, but they will gradually. And it really takes purification of one's mind to do so. Several qualities of Holy Mother are radical, revolutionary, and make her a feminist ideal for our times. We've already heard some of those qualities. Their foundation is perfect selflessness, egolessness, boundless love grounded in the living reality and feeling of oneness. One quality I would like to focus on today is wisdom. Sri Ramakrishna said that Holy Mother is the communicator of knowledge. She's full of the rarest wisdom. He spoke of her as the goddess Saraswati, come down to impart wisdom. But what does wisdom mean? What kind of knowledge practice is at play here? According to the Oxford dictionaries, wisdom is the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Holy Mother embodies all of that. I would like to elaborate on wisdom, or on her quality of wisdom, through a focus on her perfect understanding and ability to adapt. Holy Mother has had perfect understanding of what is needed in every situation, and the ability to perfectly apply it, to perfectly materialize that understanding in decision and action. She followed the Master's instruction to adapt yourself to time, space, and person so perfectly that it astonished even the Master. There is such a wonderful power of adjustment in Holy Mother's thought and action, the ability to do the right thing at the right time. There's so many examples from her life that illustrate this quality, but in the interest of time, I'll just point out a few. After the signs of the Master's throat cancer started to manifest in 1885, the devotees moved him to Kolkata so that he would receive proper medical care. But soon, they realized that there must be proper arrangement for preparing the Master's diet, and that the young disciples themselves could not cook what was needed. So the idea of bringing the mother there to take care of the food preparations presented itself as a solution. But there was, as Swami Gambirananda writes, an insoluble problem. The house where the Master resided had no inner apartment for women. The devotees were at a loss to think how the Master could live, how the mother could live there. And remembering her preference for extreme seclusion, many doubted whether she would come at all. The mother, who, as we've heard in the previous talks, avoided being seen by anybody in spite of her long residence at the Nahabat, could not be expected to get over this habit of privacy all of a sudden and live and act freely among men. But they had no alternative. And so they presented the matter to the Master and sought out his opinion, and he too reminded them of the mother's habit, but said, go ahead and ask her and we'll see. And here's Swami Gambirananda again. The Master and his devotees based their misgivings on what they had known of the Holy Mother's temperament, but they forgot her wonderful power of adapting her life to the necessities of circumstances, and her readiness to sacrifice all comfort and privacy for the sake of the Master. And as a matter of fact, as soon as the proposal was made to the mother, she immediately came. Mother always acts, there's such suppleness of thought, such a graceful flexibility in Holy Mother. She's not caught up in stubborn habits and fixities, as most of us are. In fact, one might say that she's not caught up in habit at all, for that implies acting unconsciously. Mother always acts consciously, not out of compulsion, out of habit, hence her capacity to perfectly adapt according to circumstance. Here's another example, which also brings to light Holy Mother's equipoise, her unbroken calmness and detachment in the face of all adversity. The Holy Mother and her party were on their way to Kualpara and made a halt for cooking for noon. Rice was being cooked in an earthen pot, but when the cook wanted to take it down, it fell on the ground and broke, and the rice spread on the ground. Swami Gambirananda writes, this created a real problem, for such food could not be offered to the Master, and cooking it again would mean great delay. But the mother remained undisturbed. She carefully removed the rice from the top of the scattered heat to some leaves and adroitly separated the gruel from it. Then she washed her hands and brought out the picture of the Master from her box. Along with the rice, she served some curry and lentil soup for the Master and said with folded hands, "This is how you have ordained today. Now take some warm food without delay." The mother's talk and movements set all laughing, but nothing perturbed her. She said calmly, "I have to adjust according to time and circumstance. Come now, do you all sit down for food." This flexibility notwithstanding, there's also firmness and determination in Holy Mother's thought and action, which shows that adapting oneself to time and circumstance must happen in line with what is right and what is true. For instance, the head of the Kualpara ashram was quite authoritarian. One time, when the mother was there, the head told the mother that the brahmacharis did not want to stay any longer at the ashram there, and they left for other places. He asked her to make it impossible for these brahmacharis to find shelter anywhere so that they would return to the Kualpara ashram. Swami Gambhirananda remarks about this incident. The mother had the greatest affection for the head, and he too was profoundly devoted to her. But that was no reason why she should wink at callousness. The head's request enraged her, and she said, "What would you have me to say to them? Do you expect me to tell them that they shall not find quarters anywhere? They are my sons and have come to the master. The master will look after them wherever they may be. And you would have me say that they shall be refused accommodation everywhere? I shall not say that." All became awed at the mother's flushed face and loud voice. The devoted head at once fell at her feet and begged for mercy. Holy Mother was softer than a flower and yet harder than a flint, as Swami Gambhirananda writes, quoting an Indian poet. The latter part of the statement, harder than a flint, also puts us in mind of Holy Mother's strengths, her incredible power of endurance of all the adversity and burdens she carried throughout her life, all the unending family drama, the lack of comfort, the unending toil, and the many illnesses she suffered from that we heard about in the previous talks. Holy Mother was a strong woman and a model of strength for everyone, irrespective of gender. Holy Mother practiced the principle of adapting oneself to time, place, and person in relation both to her relatives and to her devotees. Regarding the latter, it's remarkable how the mother gave instruction that was particular to each individual and their mental makeup. So the instruction she gives to one person does not necessarily hold for another. And the examples to illustrate it, but I'm not going to go into that in the interest of time. As for her way of relating to her own relatives, the Holy Mother said, "One has to give some freedom to each and lower oneself a little. When dealing with these conceited persons, I have to study their moods and move cautiously." What patience, humility, and endurance did the Holy Mother manifest in relation to her relatives? There's not time to illustrate this now, but I do want to point out something that to me is stunning because it seems so incredibly difficult. Holy Mother never finds fault with anyone. She knows that there is shortcoming, but consciously ignores it and sees the good. She relates how bitterly it pained her to allow herself to take notice of people's faults, and thus prayed to the Master with tearful eyes, "Master, I cannot bear finding fault. Could I at least get rid of the habit of picking holes in other people's clothes?" And not only does she not find fault, she also makes all her own by seeing the essence, the shared divinity of all. This takes me to another quality that for me makes Holy Mother an incontestable feminist ideal, and that is her commitment to the practice of radical equality. In a common understanding, feminism has the principle of equality as its basis. To go to the dictionary definition, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. The study of Holy Mother's life and teaching really clarifies and enriches our conception of equality and provides a grounding for it, namely a grounding in oneness, in the shared divinity of all, human and non-human beings alike. The principle of equality that we find manifested in the Holy Mother's life is radical, both for her times and for ours. As Swami Gambhirananda put it, the Mother's infinite love transcended all limitations of caste and color, merit and demerit, and in fact of all conditions of life. A few incidents related to Amzad, a Muslim man who sometimes took to stealing and robbery due to extreme poverty, are amply illustrative. Let me read them out. One day, Amzad brought some plantains to the Mother and said, "Mother, here are some plantains for the Master. Will you accept them?" The Holy Mother stretched out her hands for acceptance and said, "Certainly I will, my dear. Hand them over. Why should I not, since you have brought them for the Master?" A woman devotee who hailed from a neighboring village and happened to be there was taken aback by what she saw as Holy Mother's strange behavior. And she said warningly, These are sieves, you know. Why should his things be offered to the master? The mother, apparently unperturbed by this rude interference, deposited the fruits in the store and ordered some fried rice and sweets for the man. When he had gone, she turned to the woman and administered a stern rebuke. I know who is good and who is not. One day, the mother seated Amzad on her veranda for his meal. This is another incident. Nalini Devi served him, but owing to caste prejudices, she stood at a distance on the courtyard and tossed the food on the man's leaf plate. This displeased the mother, who said, "Can one have any relish for food if it is served in such a fashion? If you can't serve him properly, I shall do it." When Amzad had finished his meal, the mother cleansed the place herself. At this, Nalini Devi loudly denounced the act, saying, "Oh, dear aunt, you lose your caste thereby." But the mother cut her short. "Amzad is as truly my son as my Sharad, Saradananda himself is." This commitment to radical equality grounded in oneness constitutes the essence of the ideal of motherhood that Ma Sharada exemplifies. For a modern-day feminist, motherhood is a complicated subject. To give you a sense of that complication, I want to cite just a few lines from a recent article from The Guardian from 2018. Feminism and motherhood have a complicated relationship. Radical feminist Shulamit Firestone articulated this most starkly in her argument that women would never truly be free of patriarchy until they were freed from the yoke of reproduction. Jumping ahead. In contrast, Adrienne Rich, another prominent feminist, argued that it was the patriarchal notion of motherhood, not the actual experience of mothering, that was the source of women's oppression. Meanwhile, womanists saw in this interpretation of motherhood yet another way in which white feminists were ignoring their experiences, oblivious to the history of eugenics and forced sterilization that played into how women of color viewed reproduction. While white feminists often painted motherhood as the ultimate apparatus of patriarchy, many activist women of color saw in motherhood not only freedom, but also agency. So a very complicated relation. The ideal of motherhood that the Holy Mother embodies, I dare say, transcends all these ideas and bypasses all these critiques. For it is not an ideal grounded in biology, but on the contrary, it is an ideal grounded in divinity and the radical equality of everyone that the recognition of everyone's innate divinity affords. In Holy Mother's eyes and beings, all are her children, and as she herself says, children are all equal. This extends to non-human beings as well. Consider, for example, an incident related to a cat that Holy Mother used to take care of at Jayarambati. I will again turn to Swami Gambhirananda for a telling of this incident. Cats are given to stealing, but this did not annoy the mother, who said, "To steal is their nature, my boy. Who will feed them fondly?" But Brahmachari Nyan declared a war against the cat. One day, when he flung her away, the mother looked pale with pain. Then came the time for the mother's departure for Calcutta. The mother called the Brahmachari to her and said, "Nyan, you should cook rice for the cats so that they may not have to go to other houses, for then people will abuse us, my boy." This was a common argument by which the mother knew the lot of cats may not improve overnight. And therefore she added, "Look here, Nyan, don't beat the cats, for even in dumb am I." She is in everything, the mother of the universe, the divine power. There's so much more to say regarding the Holy Mother as a feminist ideal, about her leadership, her independence, the utmost respect she garnered from Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. But the time tells me that I need to stop. My heartfelt thanks to Swami Yogadmananda and you all for the opportunity to meditate on this extraordinary life and ideal.
What a wonderful symposium it was. All these three learned, insightful speeches that we heard, each of them brought out a very special feature of Holy Mother's life, which is very relevant to modern people like us. It is the ideal that Holy Mother presented was just another aspect of this Sri Ramakrishna's mission of bringing the practical spiritual wisdom to our world, we modern people. We see, like Sarah, she very beautifully said how people get perturbed and become scared in this situation. How Holy Mother's life becomes a really guiding light, where the love, steadfastness, and being unperturbed in all very difficult situations gives us strength, courage. Arudim brought out how all the superheroes that people keep on adoring these days, they all actually pale before superheroism of Holy Mother. Wonderful. And Yona brought out how Holy Mother is the super feminist, an ideal for feminists. Many feminists will not agree so much, but it is really, if the feminists, they read Holy Mother's life, they will find that it is a great revelation where the power that Holy Mother was brought, that kind of transformed the womanhood and took it to a very high level of achievements. So it was very good. Holy Mother, I wouldn't say much because there is not much time, but still I will make one point from the same hymn that Arunim had been quoting, the great hymn written by Swami Abhedananda, that she was purity by nature. Her life was pure. Pravitram charitam yasyaha pavitram jivanam tatha. That she lived a life of purity. Her whole being was pure. She was in fact purity incarnate. And this purity was so overwhelming in her life. I will just narrate one incident. The readers of the biography of Sri Ramakrishna know that he wouldn't be able to partake food that was coming from some person who live somewhat immoral life. So, a life full of cheatery and such things. So, one day it so happened that Sri Ramakrishna's plate of food was being carried by a woman to him. And Holy Mother used to carry every day. But this woman asked Mother, "Mother, can I take it today to the master?" And Mother said, "Okay." And Sri Ramakrishna could not touch that food. And he was feeling a sense of indignation also, that what is this? When Holy Mother saw that Sri Ramakrishna is not eating, he asked, "Well, And Sri Ramakrishna asked her, why did you tell her? Why did you tell her? Don't you know her character? Why did you tell her to bring the food? How can I eat? I am not able to eat. It was not that Sri Ramakrishna would not eat intentionally. It was a constitutional impossibility for him to touch that food. It is not that, no, like a child getting miffed, no, I won't eat. Not like that. But it was not possible for him to touch that food. And Holy Mother said, well, she said, Mother, Sri Ramakrishna said, promise that you will not do it like this, you will bring the food always. Holy Mother said, please eat today. I will try my best to bring the food to you every day myself. And came the master stroke then. But if someone says me, calling me mother, then I will not be able to refuse. And then Sri Ramakrishna partook that food on that day. Now the question comes, how the food that he was not able to eat because it was not, he thought it's not pure, how could it become pure? Holy Mother's presence, that purity there, it changed, it brought about that change. The presence of Pavitrata Swarupinyai, the one who is by nature purity itself. In the presence of that purity, everything got transformed and became pure. So that is another ideal presented to us by Holy Mother. Let us try to be pure, and that will make us see God. As Jesus says in the Beatitudes, we read that in the Sermon on the Mount, that blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So, on this very auspicious occasion, let us pray to Holy Mother that bless us with these spiritual qualities through grace. She is full of grace. We may not be deserving children, but still being mother, she would bestow all those things on us. With this prayer, I conclude this symposium. Thank you all the speakers, and thank you the attendees. And well, before you go, let me make some announcements. One announcement. Each of you, before you go, take a box of some sweets kept there down. So please don't forget to take them. So let me make some announcements. Next Sunday, the topic of lecture is, oh my goodness, it is opposite of what we normally hear from this platform, you know. The topic is, let us become truly selfish. We say become unselfish, but that is, this Sunday we will try to be selfish. The coming Tuesday, Friday lectures in the evening classes will go on as usual. This Tuesday, the topic, as always, is the Sri Ramakrishna's biography, Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. And Friday, the stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is at 7:30 p.m. and every day, morning, evening, meditation prayers, they are going on. People can come in person as well, observing all the restrictions. So it is with this Let me conclude with the closing prayers. Any other announcement? Okay. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Now there will be Arati, as every Sunday we have.
And adored by all, we adore you. Stainless Lord, assuming human form. Stainless Lord, assuming human form. Transcendent yet filled with love. You free us from the stain of sin and ornament our world. Consciousness is a form. Your eyes always purified by knowledge. Your eyes always purified by knowledge. Looking at them, delusion is gone. Ocean of shining love and feeling, ever inebriated in your infinite love. Your feet always dear to your devotees. Your feet always dear to your devotees. Form our boat to cross this world. Revealed to us as God incarnate and the Lord of all things, helping us join with you. Your mind's always set in the divine light. Your mind's always set in the divine light. This we can see through your grace. Destroyer of our worldly sorrow and compassion soul. Infinite is your word. Your lives offered for the world's deliverance. Your lives offered for the world's deliverance.
darkness and fear. Renouncer of all lust and lucre, therefore you were always spurning sensual life. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Grant to us pure love for you. You're fearless and you're free from doubting, with your mind very firmly resolved. Causeless refuge of your devotees, causeless refuge of your devotees, renouncing caste and birth. Our treasure is your holy feet, which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even sightedness. You give love and even sightedness to remove our anguish here. Our treasure is your holy feet, which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even sightedness. You give love and even sightedness to remove our anguish here. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond bold speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond bold speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Darkness is destroyed by your light. Oh Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond bold speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond bold speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Darkness is destroyed by your light. O Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for worship divine. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Jaya Jaya fire worship divine. Hara Hara fire worship divine. Shiva Shiva fire worship divine. Breaker of all our worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Auspicious and blessed graciousness sublime, all noble ends you give to us, granting us refuge, all-seeing Gauri. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Creation, preservation, dissolution are your powers, eternal one. Nature's real basis, nature's essence. O Mother Divine, our love to you. We come seeking refuge from anguish. Be our Savior through your deep concern. All our suffering remove, Goddess. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Victory, O Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. जय श्री राम कृष्ण देव की जय। जय श्री शारदा देवी की जय। जय श्री स्वामी विवेकानंद की जय। जय श्री बुद्धदेव की जय। जय श्री जीसस क्राइस्ट की जय।